Hi, I'm Bruce Doris, President and CEO of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Here with Sarah Hoffman, our Public Information Officer at the ACFE, and welcome to our Facebook Live event this week for our International Fraud Awareness Week. One of the things that we have highlighted over the years is our report to the nations, which we have a copy of here, talking about a lot of the statistics that relate to fraud, whether it's from the type of perpetrator that commits fraud typically, or looking at some of the statistics related to fraud prevention, fraud awareness. But one of the things that we wanted to do since then is to make sure that we have a dedicated time period through the year to make sure that we have this concentrated effort to make fraud awareness a part of our daily efforts as fraud examiners, going out into our communities and talking about what we do for a living. It's a quick anecdote I've heard many years ago from a fraud examiner. He goes, one of the things that the ACFE and being a certified fraud examiner did for me was to let my family and my friends know exactly what I did for a living. And so what we can do through the Fraud Awareness Week is take that message to our community. One of the things that I'd like to have Sarah talk about is what our supporters do. How many do we have throughout through the week, through the ACFE, and what they do to support fraud awareness.
Yeah, so International Fraud Awareness Week is I think it's a perfect time in the year to really get the message of anti-fraud education, fraud prevention out there. And I get the question a lot of what someone can do to be a supporter for Fraud Week. And it's really, the short answer is there's no wrong way to support International Fraud Awareness Week. And a little bit longer one is kind of the first step is you go on fraudweek.com and you sign up as a supporter. Once you do that, we'll add the name of your organization and a link to your website on our official supporters page. From there, it's kind of a choose your own adventure sort of fraud education. And I mean, some people invite a CFE to come talk to their employees. Some people post a poster that we provide in their break room. Other people play games. They get really into fraud trivia. They really just have a ton of fun with it. And so I think that fraud is a serious problem, but Fraud Week, people get so creative with what they can do to spread that message, kind of. It's a time that education and fun come together, in my opinion. I know that this year General Mills they have a ton of events, and they have a fraud awareness expo today where they have different booths talking about different types of fraud. They have, I believe, presentations from different departments to explain how fraud affects every single department of a company. Because you might think, oh, fraud is an accounting issue, and that's that, when in fact it can spill over to HR needs to know about how to prevent fraud and red flags, especially behavioral red flags.
Sure.
And stuff like that. So it's, first, I do want to thank some of our Fraud Week ambassadors this year, including the Abu Dhabi Accountability Authority, Al Hilal Bank, ArcelorMittal, the Bank of Guam, Citizens Property Insurance, the CRI Group, First Abu Dhabi Bank, General Mills, as I mentioned before, Kananga, Maersk, Magellan Health, Mashrek, Microsoft, Millicom, the Oman Insurance Company, Orange, TD Bank, Vodafone, and Voya. And we have a lot of other people that have signed up as official supporters, especially some of our chapters.
Yeah, we have quite a few chapters around the world doing events this week. In particular in Egypt, here in the United States with our El Paso chapter, the Melbourne chapter down in Australia, Northern Colorado here in the U.S. as well, and then a really cool event with our Turkey chapter, and I'll mention here in just a minute, and the in Zambia chapter as well. It's one of the things that Sarah mentioned, talking about having fraud in terms of the seriousness of it, and obviously it is, but having some levity to at least talking about it. I remember a few years ago, Fraud Awareness Week actually made a late night comedy talk show here in the United States. So it's one of the things that we're trying to do is just to make sure that our communities are aware of this. People within our organization, as Sarah mentioned, that may not have fraud on their lips as we do every day, is to making them aware of what we do and what they can do to reduce fraud. I mean, just as you see in the report to the nations, just a few simple measures in the anti-fraud prevention, just having codes of conduct and a few others can reduce fraud in half in terms of the duration, in terms of the amount lost, just simply by introducing and implementing some fraud awareness and fraud prevention techniques. A few of those events going on, as Sarah mentioned, General Mills is holding that event. A group in, Canega, she was mentioning, also holding an event in games this week with their staff. The North Asia Council and the East Asia Council holding an information awareness in their community this week. The ACFE UK chapter is having their annual conference on Tuesday, coinciding with Fraud Awareness Week. The Turkey chapter, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, presenting an interactive fraud examination simulation game, which I want some more feedback from our Turkey chapter to find out what they're doing and how we can share that with so many others. And the one thing about sharing that information, if you'll go to fraudweek.com, and I believe that the hashtag for this on Twitter and Instagram and the like is hashtag fraudweek. There are so many resources, so many things that we have available for not just ACFE members, but just the public at large, because that's, again, one of our missions is to make that public aware of what we do at the ACFE and what you do as fraud examiners. In fact, Sarah, what are some of the resources that we have available at fraudweek.com?
So we have a ton of resources, and they are all free to use. Anyone can use them, as you mentioned. You don't have to be a member of the ACFE. We're putting all these out there so as many people as possible can use them and spread fraud awareness. We have 2 new animated shareable videos this year, which is really cool. One looks at how identity thieves steal identities and what you can do to protect yourself and your organization from some of that stealing identities. And one that is actually brand new, we just put it up today, is kind of a PSA about what does fraud mean to you, and really getting that message to your everyday person. Like you mentioned, not even having to have a background in anti-fraud education or prevention or anything, but just your average person is so much more affected by fraud than they realize. It affects almost every part of your life, whether it's mortgage fraud or education fraud, probate fraud. It really just touches a lot of things. So that video, like I said, brand new. It's really cool, and we made it easy to share. It's perfect for sharing on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's, I believe, around 90 seconds, so it should fit in all of those too. And that's really cool. We also have some new infographics, which I think you have printed out there. One is talking about the effectiveness of reporting hotlines and what that does to help diminish fraud, the duration and the cost of fraud. We also have how fraud...
Small businesses here?
Small businesses. And small businesses are especially affected by fraud because they usually don't have the manpower or the money to put a lot of the controls in place that larger companies might have, but small businesses also tend to rely a lot on trust. They really know all their employees, and unfortunately that can cause a breeding ground for that trust being taken advantage of.
Well, and that's where Fraud Week can also come in, and the resources that we at ACFE have put on the website at fraudweek.com is helping those small businesses, large businesses, enterprises, government as well. But by having this available, so that you can show to your staff, an audit committee, depending on how large you are, just to help explain what you need in terms of your resources, making people aware of some of the controls that you want to put in place, or that perhaps you have in place that you want to make even more robust. The resources are there to help you to talk about this. So rather than going into a meeting not really having anything and maybe a few notes, you've got these infographics, the short videos that Sarah had mentioned, and those are just some of the new things. If you look at fraudweek.com under those resources, there's a lot that we've had from previous years and even the last few months that have been added to the platform that we have available, again, for members and the general public. The downloadable poster that Sarah mentioned, inviting a CFE. So if you're listening to this and watching this Facebook Live video, you're thinking, well, I don't really know anyone in my area to talk about fraud. Go to the Invite a CFE and look for someone who is practicing in your area. Maybe they can come and speak to your business, to your organization, to your club, to spread that word during Fraud Awareness Week.
Mm-hmm. That directory that Bruce is mentioning is found on acfe.com. If you just Google find a CFE, we have a directory and you can search by state, by country, and they'll have contact info there so that you're able to connect with someone in your area that might be able to come and kind of educate that. And I think what you were saying is so important, and in my mind, it's kind of the purpose of Fraud Week is it's having an excuse to start that conversation. A lot of people don't like to talk about fraud because they see it as, well, it's almost a boogeyman of like, sure, if I talk about it, that means that it'll give someone an idea. And the unfortunate reality is fraud occurs everywhere all the time, and it's not something that should be as much of a taboo subject. And the more that you talk about it, actually, the more aware your employees are, you are about it, the less likely it would be that you would have a longer or more costlier fraud. So just raising that awareness is so important. And I was thinking, it's not only your employees too, and within your organization to raise awareness, but in past years, a lot of companies have actually gone what I think is like a step beyond and educated their customers, their vendors, their kind of really pushing the message out there. And that included, I believe, Caribou Coffee. It might have been a few franchises of it, or it might have been corporate. But a few years ago, Caribou Coffee had signs up in their stores during Fraud Week to educate customers about it. I know Meals on Wheels of San Diego, a couple years, printed specifically tips on kind of red flags of elder fraud for their recipients of Meals on Wheels on placemats.
So is that some of the frequently asked questions that you get, Sarah, through your department on what someone can do or what groups have done in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people, they might be a little bit afraid to commit to supporting Fraud Week because they're not sure how big of a commitment it is. And as I mentioned before, it's really as big of a commitment as you want it to be. Sure. We understand that not everyone has budget or a planning committee, and they're not able to put on a huge thing. Maybe you don't even have the time to do a lunchtime seminar, but almost everyone has the time to print out, a poster and put it up in their break room. Everyone has the time to maybe look at a fraud prevention checklist or really even just talking to their coworkers about it. So there's no wrong way to support Fraud Week. I think that it's really just kind of whatever you can do is better than doing nothing. So, sure. And we try and keep it as open-ended as possible in order to have as many people actually participate.
Yeah, in fact, there's also a link at fraudweek.com. And again, use that hashtag with a lot of, you use Twitter, Instagram to put stories out about and things that you're doing related to Fraud Week and just fraud in general. But adding that hashtag to it gives that little special purpose in this particular week to draw attention to what we're doing at the ACFE and what you do in your practices every single day. In fact, on the resources part of fraudweek.com, there's an area that's dedicated, and we've used it here in Texas, here in the United States, to get a proclamation from the Office of the Governor talking about and proclaiming this to be Fraud Awareness Week. You can do that in your community, whether it's in the United States or any place in the world. It's just getting the involvement from those in government, from those who can have the ability to help you make this proclamation, and just to have people aware of what you're doing. And so we try to make it as easy as possible, and Sarah has got a tremendous amount of information. I loved looking at it this morning, and I'll pull it up on my iPad here. I mean, looking at some of the things that different groups have done in the past, looking at all the resources there. I saw a number of videos, some new videos that we have for fraudsters who have talked about what they've done and how they started going down that path. So what you can do as that fraud examiner, as someone very, very new to fraud training and fraud awareness, being able to use those, show those around. This is not something that you're going to be doing every day, as Sarah mentioned. It's something that we can dedicate once a week. Use that as your resource, as you're in with those in your business to talk about fraud and to show these fraudsters and what they've done in large organizations as well as small ones to perpetrate that type of fraud that really impacted their business. It's there, it's free, so please take advantage of it.
Yeah, like Bruce mentioned, with the proclamation, if you go on fraudweek.com and go on the What You Can Do page, we have some stuff that people have done in previous years, but we also have a customizable proclamation. We have a customizable press release. We want to give as many tools as possible to people so you can basically just fill in the blanks and customize it for yourself and really get that message out there. Yeah, it's just some of the stuff that people do to spread the message is really, really interesting and really cool. I nerd out about it a lot. Yeah. So, also, by the way, we are taking questions. I don't know if we have any currently, so we can answer a couple of those. If you want to ask us a question, you can just comment on this live. So one of the first questions, what are the dates of Fraud Week? Fraud Week is happening right now. It is November 11th through the 17th this year. Next year, it's going to be the 17th through the 23rd, I believe. And we have if you go on fraudweek.com, the dates are right up there. And once this week is over, we'll put up the dates for next year as well. So you're able to really take time to plan and get any resources or stuff that you might need.
But it's not too late to get involved this week, though. I mean, yeah, Sarah's right. We'll be planning for next year as well, but it's just Monday. So we got a few days left to talk about fraud awareness and fraud training and fraud education, just in general within your offices. So please take advantage of this particular week and just be involved.
Yeah. And also during this week, we're going to be super active on social media. Even if you're still not sure what you can do as a supporter, follow us on Twitter, look at our Facebook. On our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we'll be posting a new trivia question every single day. So you can comment and engage with us that way. If you already have some cool events planned, please take pictures of it, tag us in them, tag it with the hashtag Fraud Week. We love sharing stuff and what people are doing. So another question, how can I become a member of the ACFE? I recommend you go to acfe.com and go, I believe it's how to become a membership section or something.
Absolutely.
And we show the great benefits that the ACFE offers, how you can really start your journey to become a CFE or a member, and kind of the steps that you would take in an easy to follow way.
Yeah, there is a tremendous amount of information, of course, at fraudweek.com for this particular week. But I see another question here about offering training for auditors. Tremendous, even more information at acfe.com talking about, as Sarah mentioned, how to become a member. And it talks about the training events that we have for not just for auditors, but for any other specialty within the fraud programs that are out there, whether it be from data analytics to interviewing skills, you name it. There's training out there available for fraud examiners to sharpen their skill set. and to network with each other.
Yeah, and as we keep saying, Fraud Week is such a great time to talk about fraud and what a huge issue it is. And I think that, if you're looking or kind of weighing your career options and you're interested in fraud, I mean, being a CFE is the gold standard in the anti-fraud profession to really be on the front lines and tackle it. So it's a great time to check out the ACFE and become a CFE as well.
Yeah, we've been around for 30 years talking about fraud, and in particular, though, we want to focus on it this week. So we encourage you to go out and continue that fight. Sarah, any some final comments? Or?
I want to say thank you to everyone that's already signed up to be a supporter. I want to encourage people who haven't signed up yet to go to fraudweek.com, and there's a button that says sign up to be a supporter. Come and sign up, and maybe follow us, or definitely follow us on social media, but take a look on social media, follow that hashtag Fraud Week hashtag to see what other people are doing. I think that you might be more inspired than you would think. It's just some of the stuff that people do. It's so cool. And it's really so effective at getting the message out there that what a problem fraud is and how to kind of arm yourself against it. So, come find us on fraudweek.com and acfe.com and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we'll be posting stuff. Oh, and we'll have new blogs every day on our blog, ACFE Insights. And so some of those are really cool. We are doing a Twitter chat on Thursday. If you don't know how to partake in a Twitter chat, there's actually a blog up on ACFE Insights that explains how it works. Kind of their questions, and it's really cool to get into a big discussion with a lot of people. Sure. And you'll walk away with a ton of new knowledge about stuff and that feeling of connection. So, I'm excited that it's the beginning of Fraud Week, and I hope that we see all the awesome stuff you guys are doing and that you're able to sign up as a supporter and show that you won't stand for fraud.
So again, get out there, enjoy the week, talk about fraud within your organizations, within your community. The resources are there. The only thing missing is you taking advantage of it. And so enjoy the rest of your day, your week, and we look forward to hearing your comments and your posts through our site. Bye-bye.